Crockett of Outdoor Sportsman Group, North American Whitetail, Petersen's Bowhunting, Bowhunter Magazine, you name it. We got it covered. We're going to cover today a deer that has the entire whitetail world talking. We're at the 2020 Archery Trade Show in downtown Indianapolis, and normally it's big bows and arrows and broadheads. Not today. It's big head bones today, and we're with Brian Butcher of Andover, Kansas. And Brian, you know, I'm a weather geek, and weather geeks and a lot of other people know Andover, Kansas for a pretty infamous tornado about 25 years ago. Not anymore. Big tornadoes moved to the side. Big, huge buck, one of the biggest ever taken in the world. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'll tell you what, Brian, we're going to save most of the details for a story with North American Whitetail, and you're talking with Gordon Whittington, and when Gordon Whittington gets excited about a big deer, there's good reason for it. He's excited about this deer. It's huge. So I don't know if you can see this, but 343
and 4/8.
4/8 is the gross. Yep. What's the net?
321 and 3/8 with Boone and Crockett, and we'll get it entered in Pope and Young when Boone and Crockett says it's okay.
So it's a bow kill.
Yes.
And it's going to be the number one non-typical in Kansas with anything. With anything, it's going to be the number 2 hunter killed whitetail of all time, if this number holds true after panel scoring somewhere down the road. And it's the number 4 whitetail of all time. B&C allows for pickup entries, and the number 1 deer is a pickup entry from Missouri, the world record, the Missouri Monarch. The number 2 deer was taken by Luke Brewster last year in Illinois. The number 3 deer is the famous hole-in-the-horn buck, and the next famous buck, the butcher buck. When did you take this deer, Brian?
It was October 11th. It was an evening hunt, and everything just worked out perfectly, I guess is the easiest way to put it.
Well, how was the shot? How far was the shot?
The shot was 25 yards. The first time that I had seen the deer in the field was roughly 50 yards away, and you know, as the deer approached, I was confused, I guess is the easiest thing to say. As you look at it, you know, it doesn't look like your typical deer, and when I first saw it, I thought, you know, does it have branches and grass and everything else from doing rubs, things like that, in its antlers? And as it came forward a little bit more, I, you know, noticed it, or was confident that it was all antlers, and that was kind of the last time I looked at the antlers until I was down out of the tree stand.
Now, you know, we talk all the time about buck fever. When you see a 321-inch whitetail, do you get buck fever?
I had no idea it was 321 inches when I was sitting in that tree stand. So, you know, I don't think I did. I felt like I stayed calm the whole time, and like I said, as soon as I realized those were antlers, I, you know, was still confused about what that deer was, but I just stayed focused on the body and tried to remain calm. The deer worked towards me, turned to the north, which presented a shot out of the tree stand to my left, which as a right-hander, that's just ideal. And it, you know, I'd love to say that it was a difficult thing, but you know, everything worked out perfectly. I mean, it was a 25-yard shot, completely broadside, completely calm at the time. So,
well, I'll tell you what, there's some really cool details to this story, and again, we're not going to divulge some of those right now and save those for Gordon and Brian as they work together for what's going to be one heck of a North American whitetail story. But let's talk about the process of how you got here. So you killed this in early October. I mean, as you mentioned, you can still see some of the velvet because, man, it's hard to rub some of that stuff on a tree and get that off. I can understand why. Just an amazing collection of points. Not your standard looking, even non-typical rack, but man, in person, this is one of the most impressive whitetail racks I've ever seen. And folks, 1 year ago, we were with Luke Brewster looking at that rack, and I'm telling you what, the Brewster buck's very impressive, but it's not a whole lot more impressive than this one. We've seen 2 of the greatest bucks in history killed in the last 12 or 13 months.
Yeah.
That's amazing. And your name's on the tag. How does that feel?
It's sinking in more right now. When it first happened, I mean, I was just in complete shock as far as, you know, once we scored it the first time. And even that night, I mean, I was just in awe. You know, indescribable is, all I can say as far as the feelings, and knew that it was something special that night, and I was so excited. But boy, when we put a tape to it the first time, I just didn't believe it.
So I want to talk a little bit about that. So here's the process, folks. If you're not aware of it, the Boone and Crockett Club has been the long-time record-keeping organization. Teddy Roosevelt and others started the BNC Club many, many years ago because they believed that bucks like this and wildlife was disappearing and was going to go away, and they wanted to make sure that future generations knew what North America once had. The Boone and Crockett Club was formed, and they have become the official record-keeping organization of big deer and big game animals from around the North American continent. And they were very involved with the Luke Brewster buck. It was panel scored. This deer has had an official 60-day entry score taken. Now it's going to wait for panel measuring somewhere down the road. But the gentleman, one of the two gentlemen that scored it, is named Ken Witt. Hi, Ken. He's one of the best measurers in the country, and he's one of the ones that put a tape to it. He's on many of these panels because he's about the Michael Jordan of measurers. Yeah. And this number looks really solid to me. We'll find out somewhere down the road what the final numbers are. Yeah. But right now, you got a state record, the number 2 hunter kill whitetail of all time, and the number 4 whitetail of all time. And who knows whether it might even go up a little bit down the road with panel measuring. That's big stuff swirling around in a deer hunter's head, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It's indescribable. I've been surrounded by some really good people, and without their help and their guidance, I would have been completely lost. And even with their support, none of us knows, where does this go from here? And all I can say is what's happened so far, has been nothing but a dream, and I'm just grateful for everything that's happened so far.
Well, I got to ask you this. I'm an official Pope and Young and Boone and Crockett Club measurer, and I got to be honest, I'd be scared to death to try to figure out what this thing scored. How long did it take to score this deer?
It took the 2 men about 5.5 hours to score it.
Wow, 5.5 hours, and I can see why. But when they added the numbers up, what were you thinking when they came out and told you what the numbers were?
Relief, I guess, is the biggest thing. Number one, they scored it a little higher than where we had scored it. We were trying to be, conservative, but I felt like I had lightning in a bottle for darn near 3 months, and I was excited about it. And it's not that I wanted to go out and brag about it, but I at least wanted to at least share the story, and I felt like I wasn't able to do that because every time we measured it, the numbers just didn't seem realistic. So when they came out and told me, it was just, a relief at that point, just because I felt like I had waited so long, through the process. It was actually measured 87 days after I harvested it. So, it was a little longer than the 60-day that I was expecting, and, it was just a great feeling, I guess, is the best way to put it.
I wish people could have seen the crowd when we started. It's kind of dispersed a little bit now, I suppose, but I mean, it was 10, 15 deep all around this. We're in the Scent Crusher booth, which is in Kansas, and you're good friends with them. Yeah. And a lot of people have wanted to see this year. They wanted to shake your hand. You're kind of the rock star at the ATA show this year. How does that feel?
I don't know what to say. It's nothing that I expected or dreamed of necessarily, but ever since all this happened, my philosophy and attitude's just been, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and just try to proceed with no regrets later in life. And I got to tell you, it's been an absolute blast since I've showed up here, and getting to experience things that I never thought were possible. And so I'm just grateful for everything so far.
Well, I'll tell you what, you can go to NorthAmericanWhitetail.com here in the next few days, and we're going to have a digital story up about this. You're going to be able to see this in the pages of the most iconic whitetail magazine. There is the great Gordon Whittington edited, and it's going to be in NAW pages somewhere down the road this year. And I think there's even a North American Whitetail Big Buck profile that you're going to see on the TV show at some point, and good reason for all of that. This is one of the greatest bucks in all of deer hunting history. Number 1 in Kansas, and if you know anything about deer hunting, Kansas is the bomb. If you have a whitetail tag, you hope it's from either Iowa or Kansas every year, because those are the two best states probably in the world. Maybe Saskatchewan gets into the mix too. But this is the biggest to ever come out of the great buck state of Kansas. It is the second highest scored thus far buck ever taken by a hunter in North America. And it's the number 4, and not by a lot, by the way, the number 4 buck of all time in the Boone and Crockett records so far. It's been officially scored for 60 days. It's going to go to panel scoring here down the road. We'll find out then, when a bunch of B&C scorers like Ken Witt get together, what the final numbers are. But I'm going to tell you what, whatever those final numbers are, one thing's going to be true. You've heard of the Brewster buck. Now you've heard of the Butcher buck. That's it right there. Tell you what, Brian, thanks so much for letting us talk about your deer and see it up close and personal. For Brian Butcher, what a great buck story this is. Congratulations to a great hunter. I'm Lynn Burkhead. We got more on this story coming down the pike. Until then, I hope your next buck is as big as this one.